All right, everybody. The most tragic thing just happened to me. I was going to impress everybody by recording on my camera, and I had the tripod set up, and I have a new laptop, so I was going to edit it and it was going to look really good. And then I forgot to record a major part of my video because I thought it was recording and I was not. So I'm just going to start the whole thing over again on my phone. So I went to go see Nosferatu. Everybody's talking about Nosferatu. It just came out. I just saw it yesterday. And the whole internet's been telling me to go see Nosferatu. So here are my thoughts. Initial thoughts, very horny movie. And I know it's supposed to be a horny movie. I know that's what everybody has been talking about. I know vampires are supposed to be like very sexual and that's their whole thing. But it kind of just left me wondering why in the year 2024, like what message are we getting out of the film? So let's just start with the initial thoughts. Initial thoughts of the film. I did really like it. I did kind of geek out with the coloring of the film because if you've ever seen the original Nosferatu, utilized like these color screening things, or like I think they're called like the gels, where you put them on top so that it looks like blue, because they couldn't only do black and white, so it looks blue or it looks like orange or yellow if it's daytime. And that's what they used in the original Nosferatu, and this is something that they brought into this version of Nosferatu, which I really did enjoy. That kind of was exciting to me. So most of the film, not most of the film, like about half of the film almost looks black and white. I can't tell if it actually is black and white or if it's just very like desaturated, because sometimes every now and then you think it's black and white and then it almost looks like your eyes are playing a trick on you, because then all of a sudden there will be color. Like you'll see like a flesh tone of somebody's skin, or you'll see like, you know, especially like reds pop out a lot because it's very like blue. So every now and then you'll like see color and you cannot tell, like it morphs from black and white to color very seamlessly. It's very fascinating to look at, and I really enjoyed that part of the film. This is where Thomas first enters Orlok's castle, and all you see is this beautiful orange from the fireplace, and it's just bright orange. It's like a soft gradient between the bright orange over here and then the blue from the outdoors where Thomas first walks into the castle. And that is something they used in the original film, where like it was very blue for like nighttime and cold, and then all of a sudden it would be, you know, another color to symbolize, you know, whatever, daytime or whatever. And I just thought that scene looked so cool. It looks like you're kind of like walking into hell. It's all hellish and orange and scary and fiery. Whoever the cinematographer was had a love for the old style of making films, which I really appreciate, because I hate like modern like CGI stuff where they played a lot with shadows, and the original Nosferatu plays with shadows as well. Not to be like a little dick about it, but the original Nosferatu is a German expressionism film, and German expressionism is marked by a lot of shadows, a lot of like sharp shapes and unusual angles to make you feel like uneasy. And the way that they use shadows in this film was just beautiful, very cool, you know, remarkable. I would almost say it was very like off-putting and scary. And I loved the scene where Orlok's big scary clawed hand was going over the town, and you could almost imagine like how back in the olden days they could have done the same thing with like a miniature, if they made like a miniature version of the town and then they had an actor's hand just go above it and they shone lights on it. Like you could almost see how this film could have almost been made with, I mean, stylistically, film technique wise, like back in the day, which I very much appreciate. I think that's so cool. The internet was telling me that Bill Skarsgård's character Orlok was going to be so sexy, and he had this weird mustache, but his ass was not sexy at all. I think you guys are broken and evil and wrong. And the mustache was so funny. The mustache really threw me off, and I was like, we were talking about it afterwards, my boyfriend and I were like, why did he have a mustache? That's so weird. But somebody told us that in the original description of like Dracula, he has a mustache. So maybe that was scary back in the day when Bram Stoker was alive. Bram Stoker, I hardly Bram know her. But anyways, the costuming, of course, beautiful, absolutely beautiful costuming. I love the details in it. I saw a sketch, like the sketchbook for Lily Rose Depp's character, that like for her costuming, and it's just beautiful. And I'm sure they're probably very historically accurate too, which I always appreciate. And the hairstyling seemed to be very accurate as well, with that fun little German, loop-de-loops and stuff. I thought that was very cool. Visually beautiful movie, lots of fun to look at and watch. I'm going to criticize the film, but I did like the film. I think I would probably get it like a 6.5 out of 10. I was telling people yesterday, I was like, yeah, I liked it, but I don't think I would watch it again. But I do actually think I'd probably watch it again. It was really interesting. It really is gripping. I think it's very effective at making you uncomfortable and grossing you out. There's a lot of gross, disturbing moments in this film, besides just like the sexual stuff. It's like gross out almost. Like there's a lot of vomiting. There's a lot of stuff coming out of your mouth. There's her Canuck who was biting the head off of animals. That was very disturbing and very hard to watch. It was very effective at like this visceral bodily horror kind of feel, which I thought was fun. I thought that was a lot of very cool. And I think it's just that's exciting to have a film that really makes you react in such a way. Everyone was talking about the acting. Here's where I'm going to get into my criticisms. Everyone was talking about how good the acting was. I think the acting was pretty average. I'm not going to lie to you. I was just talking to my mom about this, but I do kind of hate how in historical films, especially if they take place in Europe, they just do this overall like vague British accent, but the film takes place in Germany. They didn't have a British accent in Germany, so I don't like that. I don't know if it would have been better to have a German accent, or what. Maybe, I honestly think it would have been cooler to just have them talking German, but then it probably would have lost some appeal. But if it was just a German film, that kind of would have been hype. I'm not gonna lie to you. I think we're gonna look back at this in like 30 years and really think it's pretty ridiculous, because when we look back at like the Norwester fake accent that they used to do back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, with this just weird, nonsensical, not real accent, where all the actors are like, oh, and he's gonna come by my house later. Like, nobody talks like that. And I think we're gonna find this weird British accent to be really fake and annoying too one day. Story is very over the top, and I think the dialogue is supposed to be very dramatic. It's very like almost Shakespearean, but I like that they did just like put modern words in there, because I don't like that either. I think when you're gonna be historical, then just stick to being historical. So I can't complain about that, but it is very like had a dramatic feel to it, I guess I would say. And I usually like a more natural feel by this one scene in particular, where Ellen, Lily Rose Depp's character, is talking to her friend. They're walking on the beach with their kids. She's like, do you ever feel like you don't belong in this world? And she kind of had this like stagey kind of like theatrical play delivery, which I wasn't crazy about. But Lily Rose Depp did do a great job. Everybody was a great actor in this film. The acting was very good, I would say. But it doesn't stick out to me. I'm not going to lie to you. It doesn't stick out to me. Not every film has to have this overall like moral message, and it is kind of fun to just look at the historical context of films, I think. So I guess I can't complain about it that much, but here's just what I think about it. So vampires and demons, they're sexual, and Nosferatu, in my opinion, very much ties sexuality with like evil, sin, disgust, perversion, wrongness, wickedness. And why are we like using that message in the world of today? So you can certainly read the film in a lot of different ways. You can read the film as like biblically throughout time, demons and evil are very sexual. And if you've ever read or know anything about Paradise Lost, I haven't read it, but I know a little bit about it from Mr. Windigoon. In Paradise Lost, when Eve first eats the fruit, and when Adam and Eve first eat the fruit, the very first thing they do is start freaking sexual style, but in like a really gross, disgusting, perverted way that's like, makes them like feel shame afterwards. That's what's described in Paradise Lost. And so I just think that idea of like sex, feeling like shame around sex and feeling disgusting and perverted around sex and sexual desire is something that has just existed throughout time and continues to exist today. And I think Western audiences in America, I know I can at least say, are very uncomfortable with sex. Like, we don't talk about sex in school. Like, sex ed is always like a controversial topic. People are always really weird and kind of uppity about sex, and it makes people feel uncomfortable. And watching it in a theater, especially if surrounded by other people, makes you just feel so weird and uncomfortable. So I did think it's fun that the film explores our ideas about sex and what we already as a society kind of have ingrained about sex. You can read the film as like Nosferatu is a manifestation of Ellen's like sexual shame, so if you read Nosferatu as a metaphor, then the story that she tells in the beginning, or not in the beginning, but the story she tells to her husband about how when her first encounter with Nosferatu, her dad found her outside naked, and her dad just shamed her and thought she was like an evil, perverted, disgusting, wicked girl. So you can kind of read that as a metaphor for like her, whacking off or something, or exploring her sexuality in some other way. And the shame that she feels around that, she feels like disgusting and terrible about that incident. And so you can see Nosferatu as like almost she's denying herself of Nosferatu, like she's denying herself of sex. Like, you can see it as like, this is something she wants, but she thinks is evil and bad. You can read it that way. And certainly the film kind of leads you to believe that in some parts, especially where she encounters Nosferatu in person for the first time, and they're very close, and he even tells her like, oh, you can't deny yourself of me, like, you know you want me, but you could also just read it as like sex like overtakes somebody's life and is an evil force in somebody's life. And I kind of lean more towards like the film definitely made you feel like it left the audience with the feeling of like disgust more so than empowerment. So, in the end, Ellen literally sacrifices her whole body. It's very bodily and disgusting to like think about how she passed away. Sacrifices herself to rid the town and rid her loved ones of this evil plague that will be taking over and all this evilness. She's using her body, I guess, in an empowering way to save the town, but also not really empowering because she just dies. It leaves you more with the feeling that like sex is evil and sinful and gross, So I just, why do we have that message today? I don't know what could have been changed to make the film have, I don't know if it needed a more positive message. Maybe I'm like reading too far into it, but I know it was just like, an adaptation, but why do we need that message, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I just want to go over like a couple insane things that happened where my friends and I were looking at each other and we went, what is going on? So the first thing that I didn't think even needed to be included in the movie was when Aaron Taylor Johnson's character goes to the crypt to visit his dead wife and dead children, and he's like, oh, my children, and then it goes to his wife's casket and opens it, and he's like, let me just embrace you one last time. And then they find his dead body like in the middle of sex with his dead corpse wife. That's gross. They didn't need to put that in there. Don't know what that had to do with nothing. The part that was the most insane to me, that's just like, it really felt like it came out of nowhere, and it kind of harkens back to like The Exorcist when Lily Rose Depp, her character was all possessed, right? She's talking to Hutter. They just came back from their friend's house because their friends kicked him out of the house, and Lily Rose Depp, she's like, you know what? you didn't send me any letters while you were gone. And you signed your name on a contract and you covenanted me away to the evil Orlok. And you just did it all for a stack of gold. And so they start fighting with each other. And she's like, and you know what else? You could never please me as good as he could please me anyways. And your wiener is smaller than his. And then he gets mad, and then they just start freaking sexual style on the couch. And then she's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. That was an insane scene, and it really just felt like it came out of nowhere. And we were all just like, what is going on here? And you know what else is funny too? When we stood up to leave, I saw in the row in front of me, there was like, it had to be like an 11 or 12-year-old kid. So his parents probably just were like, oh, this is a scary vampire movie. And then it was the most sexual, grotesque movie a child's eyes have ever seen. He's probably going to be like a little bit scarred from that movie. Willem Dafoe, he always plays like such a fun little kooky character in films recently, like in The Lighthouse. And in this movie, you know, is no exception, but he was just such a goofball, I feel like, because at the end of the film, where Ellen's dead, naked corpse body is lying in bed and Nosferatu's evil, gross body is on top of her, and he and Thomas Hutter enter the room to find that she's dead and they're too late, and Hutter is obviously just distraught, lying by his wife's side. There's two dead corpses in front of him, and then Willem Dafoe just goes, she sacrificed herself to save the town, and she's did it. She saved us from the plague. And then he picks up their cat and then just like looks out the window like, man, what a day. Like, time and place, really. I don't know why he needed to do that in that exact moment in time. That was a little bit strange to me. Another almost message that we kind of get from the film is like, men don't listen to women, even though women are right and they know what they're talking about. They're always just called like crazy, and that it almost gives us this feeling that like women are inherently sexual and have this like wicked tendencies and this wickedness and this vulnerability to like evil inside of us that men need to be cautious about, which is also like a religious thing that, you know, women need to cover themselves up because inherently women are just like sexual and men are going to act up and do bad things because women are just doing their normal thing. And so women need to take extra precautions to like avoid lust and evil. And this is something that Eggers explores in The Witch as well with Anya Taylor-Joy. So Anya Taylor-Joy's character and Ellen, you can draw a lot of parallels. They're just kind of innocent young girls. They're not trying to invite evil in any way or sexuality in. Anya Taylor-Joy's little brother keeps like looking at her boobs, and obviously the witches are very sexual and evil, and in the end she's all stripped naked dancing with the witches, and her family thinks she's evil and crazy and they think she killed the little baby brother. And in Nosferatu they think Ellen's insane. They think she doesn't know what she's talking about. She just has these delusions of grandeur and it's just a womanly thing because she's sensitive. She gets into these fits or whatever, and they, you know, she could be read as like being blamed for inviting Nosferatu in, even though she didn't mean to do what she did. Wicked inherently, and she's sexual inherently because Nosferatu just wants her for some reason, even though she didn't try to like be that way. That he just wanted her. And so, you know, you can kind of draw parallels between those two films as well. But I think it's just a historical thing that in America we have these Puritan beliefs, like these beliefs rooted in religion that we don't even realize are rooted in religion about sexuality. And something else I wanted to talk about, going back to like historical, I just think this is interesting. I don't think the modern film is bad for doing this, but my friend was talking to me about how the original Nosferatu from the 20s can really be read as like a German propaganda film against like Jewish people, because Jewish hate is not a new thing. Like anti-Semitism and ideas about like Jewish people taking over and being evil and dirty is like a really old concept, which is crazy, but it goes back to like biblical times. We've always been blaming the Jews for everything. So Nosferatu in the original, his design has this like crook nose, and if you ever seen like I'm sure you have seen. If you haven't, then you need to. If you've ever seen German propaganda, they usually draw Jewish people with like an exaggerated hook, scary nose, and they make them all like dirty and grotesque. And Nosferatu's very dirty and grotesque and scary. You can definitely read the film as like fear of foreigners. Nosferatu is a foreigner. He comes over on a boat and literally brings the plague with him. And so, it's kind of this idea that like foreigners or the Jews, they bring this evil, they bring plague and disease, and they're dirty and they ruin our economy and they ruin the town. So you could read it that way. You could also read it as Nosferatu corrupts an innocent woman, and that's a very old like tactic used to scare society. So again, you could read it as from the German propaganda, the Jews are coming over to corrupt our women and take their innocence and do evil. Even in an old film like Birth of a Nation, this is explored in Birth of a Nation as well, where like the KKK saves the day from freed black people who are no longer enslaved. The freed slaves, they run around town and they corrupt women and cause evil onto innocent women, and the KKK has to save the day. Insane film, by the way. It's kind of like a tale as old as time, really, and you can definitely see that from the film. My friend was telling me the boss is kind of like an accountant almost, right? Mr. Knock, Thomas's boss. And I don't know if Thomas like works at like real estate basically. Boss is like in charge of money. He's like, Thomas, go on this adventure that I'm telling you to do. And then as soon as Thomas leaves, the next scene we see him in is like he's doing this crazy blood ritual thing, and he's all like praising Nosferatu, which kind of goes back to the, again, like ancient old idea that Jewish people follow a weird religion and do weird religious practices, and that's where the idea of like adrenochrome and draining babies for blood comes from. It's an old like anti-Semitic stereotype, so I could definitely draw parallels to that in the film as well. I also wanted to add that Jewish people being in control of money is obviously a really old Jewish stereotype. Jewish people, their religion allowed them to be in control of banks, by the way, if you didn't know that. So in the movie, Thomas he pursues money, and so the pursuit of money leads him to evil, if you want to think about it that way as well. And I don't think that makes the modern version bad or anti-Semitic or anything like that. It's just interesting to look at the historical context. And even if the film wasn't supposed to be a propaganda film, like I always say, films are a product of history, and films are always political, even if they're not trying to be. Just our ideas about what is scary to us and what society means, even if we're not trying to put that into the film, it's going to seep its way into the film anyways, because all films are a product of their time. So, and a product of the creator's beliefs, even if they are not trying to do that. Like, even just the idea of like, oh, what if this evil thing came over and ruined the town? Is, you can draw that back to maybe they didn't realize they were doing it, but we can look back at history and say, oh, it's because they're scared of foreigners. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely think that's something to think about when watching the film. It's just an interesting point. So my overall feelings on Nosferatu, I think it's an instant classic. I think it's something that in 20 years time, film students are going to be like, dude, we need to watch 2024 Nosferatu. That goes crazy. And I do think it's a good film. I think it's a kind of fun in an unintentional way, because like I said, like throughout the film, you're just like, what the is going on right now? And like, you just like look at the people around you and you're like, you guys seeing this? Like, what is happening? And I just think that's fun. I don't want anyone to ever come after me and say that I didn't understand the film and I'm media illiterate, because I know what's happening, but we can still be honest with ourselves and say this is a crazy film. And it pays homage to the original Nosferatu. I'm gonna be so honest with you guys, the original Nosferatu is boring. If you want to watch it, it is fun when you watch the original Nosferatu and then you watch the modern, you can draw parallels like I do. Like, I'm like, ooh, that's so fun for me. But the original Nosferatu is boring, guys. And if you ever lie to me and you say that you like the original Nosferatu and it's just so exciting to you, you're a damn dirty, evil liar. You're a liar. That is a silent film that is like 2.5 hours long. Why are you lying? Is it worth the hype? it's not like a perfect movie like all these people are making it out to be. Again, I thought the acting was average. I'm gonna tell you right now though, on the red carpet they were showing out. Those outfits, they were showing out. Great film. You should go watch Nosferatu. It's an insane film, and it is really yucky and uncomfortable and disturbing, but it does a very good job at making us feel scared, I guess. So thank you for joining me. Hopefully next time I'll be able to film this on my actual camera, but thank you for joining me and listening to Certified Yapper Yaps about Nosferatu. Bye-bye.